Last Wednesday, you learned the dichotomy of control. You know what's in your power, your judgment, your effort, your response. You know what's not, the outcomes, other people's reactions, circumstances. Maybe you even practiced it this week. You caught yourself ruminating about something outside your control and redirected your energy to something you could actually do. But here's the question that probably came up. Okay, I control my response, but what should my response be? I control my decisions, but which decision is the right one? Control to what end? That's the question Marcus Aurelius asked himself every single day, and his answer wasn't a motivational slogan, it was a framework. 4 standards he used to evaluate every decision, every action, every conversation. He called them the 4 cardinal virtues. And when you understand them, not as abstract philosophy, but as actual decision-making criteria, you stop just managing your reactions. You start building the kind of character that other people trust, the kind that carries you through your entire career. Welcome back to Book Takeaways for Professional Growth. I'm Sophia, and today we're exploring something that might sound old-fashioned, virtue, but I promise you, by the end of this episode, you'll see it as the most practical thing you've ever learned. Segment 1. What are the 4 virtues? Defining the 4 virtues. Marcus Aurelius inherited the concept of the 4 cardinal virtues from ancient Greek philosophy, but he didn't treat them as nice ideas you admire from a distance. He used them as filters. Every decision passed through these 4 questions. Here they are: justice, treating people fairly, doing what's right even when it costs you, considering the common good, your team, your organization, the people who depend on you, not just your own benefit. Wisdom, seeing clearly, sound judgment, the ability to discern what actually matters from what doesn't, acknowledging what you don't know, making decisions based on reality, not wishful thinking or ego. Courage, not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it, to have the difficult conversation, to make the unpopular decision, to stand by your values when it would be easier to stay silent. Temperance, self-control, not suppressing ambition, but directing it wisely, managing your reactions, your consumption, your intensity, sustainability over burnout. Now, here's what makes these radical in a professional context. These aren't about being nice. Marcus was the emperor of Rome, the most powerful person on earth. These virtues didn't make him weak. They made him formidable. They made him someone people trusted, someone they followed, someone history remembers not just for his power, but for his character. Why Marcus prioritized justice. Of the 4 virtues, Marcus had a clear favorite: justice. He wrote about it constantly. He came back to it over and over. Why? Because justice forces you to think beyond yourself. Your career advancement isn't the only thing that matters. Your team matters. Your customers matter. The people affected by your decisions matter. When you make a decision rooted in justice, not just profit, not convenience, not your own advancement, something changes. You build trust, real trust, the kind that survives mistakes, the kind that makes people want to work with you, follow you, recommend you. And here's the paradox. Decisions made from justice tend to generate better long-term outcomes than decisions made purely from self-interest. Because when people trust you, they give you information. They tell you the truth. They stick with you when things get hard. Justice isn't idealism, it's pragmatism over the long game. Let's break down how each virtue actually works. Segment 2. Deep dive into the 4 virtues. Justice in professional life. Let's start with justice, since Marcus made it the foundation. Justice in professional life means making decisions based on fairness and the common good, even when it's harder or less profitable. This isn't theoretical. It shows up every single week. You have a team member who's underperforming. Justice doesn't mean ignoring it or pretending everything's fine. It means having an honest, direct conversation, offering real feedback, giving them the support and clarity they need to improve, or the honesty to find a role that fits them better. You discover an error in your company's favor, a billing mistake, an oversight that benefits you. Justice means bringing it to light, even if nobody would know, even if it costs money. You're competing with a colleague for a promotion. Justice means treating them fairly, sharing information, not hoarding credit, not sabotaging them to make yourself look better. I know what you're thinking, but that's naive. That's not how the real world works. Except it is. Because here's what happens when you operate from justice. You don't have to manage the complexity of deception. You don't lie awake worrying about getting caught. You don't have to remember which version of the story you told to whom. Your internal life becomes simpler, and that simplicity gives you energy. And over time, sometimes longer than you'd like, but over time, people notice. They trust you. They want you on their team. That trust becomes your most valuable professional asset. Justice isn't weakness, it's long-term strategic advantage. Wisdom, seeing clearly. Wisdom is about reality. It's the ability to see a situation as it actually is, not as you wish it were, not as your ego needs it to be. In professional life, wisdom shows up in uncomfortable ways, admitting when you're wrong, not defending a strategy that clearly failed because your identity is wrapped up in it, not doubling down on a bad decision because changing course feels like weakness, recognizing your own limitations, asking for help, saying, "I don't know," when you don't know, bringing in someone who's better at something than you are, seeing other people clearly, understanding their strengths, their blind spots, their motivations, without projecting your own assumptions onto them. Here's what wisdom prevents: confirmation bias, that trap where you only seek information that supports what you already believe, where you surround yourself with people who agree with you, where you mistake confidence for competence. Wisdom says, test your assumptions. Actually test them. Don't just look for evidence you're right. Look for evidence you might be wrong. And when you find it, adjust. That's not weakness. That's how you get better. When you lead with wisdom, you create a culture where people feel safe being honest, where they can say, "This isn't working," without getting punished, where learning happens faster because mistakes aren't buried. They're examined. That kind of culture, that's where real innovation happens. Courage, doing the difficult thing. Let me be very clear about courage. It is not the absence of fear. Marcus was terrified. He wrote about it. He was afraid of failure, afraid of death, afraid of letting people down. He felt all of it. Courage is doing what's right despite the fear. In professional contexts, courage is often quiet. It's not dramatic. It looks like speaking up in a meeting when everyone else is silent and you're the only one who sees the problem. Telling your boss something they don't want to hear, that the timeline is unrealistic, that the strategy has a fatal flaw, that the decision they're about to make will damage trust. Making an unpopular decision, knowing some people will be upset, knowing you might take heat for it, doing it anyway because it's the right call. Having a difficult conversation with a team member whose behavior is affecting everyone else, even though it's uncomfortable, even though they might get defensive, leaving a job that pays well but violates your values, even though it's financially risky. Here's what courage does. It moves things forward. Without courage, everything stagnates. You're managing decline. You're trying to keep everyone comfortable instead of moving toward what actually matters. And people can feel the difference. They follow leaders who are willing to take the heat for what they believe in. They lose respect for leaders who say the right things but never act on them. Courage builds credibility in a way nothing else can. Temperance, directing ambition wisely. Temperance might be the most misunderstood virtue. It doesn't mean giving up ambition. It doesn't mean settling for mediocrity or pretending you don't care about success. It means directing your ambition with wisdom. It means sustainability. Temperance shows up as not compromising your values to get ahead faster, not taking shortcuts that feel dirty, not burning yourself out chasing a promotion at the expense of your health, your relationships, your sanity, not taking credit that isn't yours, not seeking status for its own sake, managing your emotional reactions, not letting anger, defensiveness, or frustration drive your decisions, responding thoughtfully instead of reactively. Here's what happens without temperance. You sacrifice everything for short-term wins. You overcommit. You cut ethical corners. You chase metrics at the expense of meaning. And then, eventually, you crash. You burn out. You look back at the last 5 years and wonder what you were chasing and why it felt so empty when you got it. Or worse, you get what you wanted and realize it wasn't worth what you gave up. Temperance says, yes, aim high, but not at the cost of your integrity, not at the cost of your humanity. It's the virtue that keeps you in the game long enough to actually make an impact. Because the professionals who last, the ones who build careers that matter, aren't the ones who sprint the hardest. They're the ones who learn how to pace themselves. Segment 3. Professional Applications and Real Scenarios. Scenario 1. The promotion decision. Let me show you how this works in real life. You're going for a promotion. You want it. You've been working toward it, but you're competing against a colleague who's also qualified, maybe more qualified than you want to admit. This is where the 4 virtues become decision-making filters. Justice asks, are you genuinely the best person for this role? Or are you just more aggressive about pursuing it? If your colleague is actually better suited, can you advocate for them? Can you step back with integrity? Wisdom asks, what do you actually want? Is this promotion moving you toward a career you respect? Or are you chasing it because it feels like the next logical step? Be honest. Are you ready? What are your real strengths and gaps? Courage asks, can you have a direct conversation with your boss about what success looks like in this role? Can you ask for honest feedback, even if it's uncomfortable? Can you handle hearing not yet? Temperance asks, what's the sustainable path forward? Are you overextending to look better than your peer? Or can you pursue this with integrity, knowing that if you don't get it, you'll be okay? That this isn't your only shot? When you run this decision through the 4 virtues, something shifts. You stop optimizing purely for winning. You start optimizing for becoming the kind of person you actually respect. And here's the twist. That person is more promotable because people trust them, because they make decisions from a foundation that doesn't crumble under pressure. Scenario 2. The ethics question. Here's a harder one. You're in a meeting. Your company wants to launch a feature that has limitations customers don't understand. Marketing wants to oversell it. It'll generate revenue, but customers will be disappointed and angry when they realize what they actually bought. You can feel the pressure in the room. Everyone wants this to move forward. If you speak up, you'll slow things down. You'll be the difficult one. This is where virtue gets tested in real time. Justice says, your customers deserve honesty. Your company deserves long-term trust over short-term revenue. Speak up. Wisdom says, don't make an emotional accusation. Present the facts. What are the real consequences? What's the long-term impact on your brand, your customer relationships, your team's morale? Courage says, you will be unpopular for bringing this up. You might slow down a revenue initiative. You might be labeled not a team player. Do it anyway. Temperance says, don't get sanctimonious. Don't make this about proving you're the moral one. Just present information clearly and let people make an informed decision. Here's the hardest part. You don't control whether they listen. That's where last week's dichotomy of control comes back in. Your job is to be the person who speaks the truth clearly and respectfully. Whether they listen, that's not in your control, but you'll be able to live with yourself. And 6 months from now, when the customer backlash hits and everyone's scrambling to understand what went wrong, you won't be carrying that weight. You'll know you did what you could. That matters more than you think. Scenario 3. The difficult conversation. One more. This one terrifies almost everyone. You have a team member who's talented, genuinely talented, but their behavior is affecting everyone else. They're defensive. They blame others when things go wrong. They're hard to collaborate with. People are starting to avoid working with them. You need to have a conversation, and you've been putting it off for weeks because it could get awkward. They might get angry, they might shut down, they might leave. But the cost of not having this conversation is mounting. Your team is suffering, morale is dropping, and you're losing credibility by pretending it's not happening. The 4 virtues give you the framework. Justice says they deserve honest feedback. They can't fix what they don't know about. And your team deserves a healthier dynamic. Not having this conversation is unfair to everyone. Wisdom says, come in with genuine curiosity, not judgment. I've noticed this pattern. Help me understand what's going on. Listen for the real issue underneath the behavior. Maybe they're overwhelmed. Maybe they don't feel supported. Maybe they don't realize the impact they're having. Courage says, have the conversation despite the discomfort. Do it privately, do it respectfully, but do it. Temperance says, don't make this bigger than it is. Don't let your frustration turn this into a list of everything they've ever done wrong. Focus on the specific pattern and its impact. Be clear, be direct, but don't pile on. When you approach this conversation from virtue, something fundamental changes. You're not attacking them. You're not afraid of them. You're genuinely trying to help them succeed and help the team succeed. And often, not always, but often, they actually hear you because they can feel that genuine care underneath the honest feedback. They can sense that you're not trying to punish them. You're trying to help them become better. That's the power of virtue in professional life. It changes not just what you decide, but how you show up. And that changes everything. Recap and key takeaways. Here's what I want you to take from today. Number 1, virtue isn't weakness, it's power. Marcus Aurelius used justice, wisdom, courage, and temperance to rule the most powerful empire on earth. These virtues made him more effective, not less. They gave him clarity when everyone around him was losing theirs. Number 2, justice is your foundation. When you make decisions based on fairness and the common good, you build trust, and trust is your most valuable professional asset. It's what makes people follow you, recommend you, stick with you when things get hard. Number 3, the virtues work together. You need wisdom to see clearly, courage to act on what you see, justice to stay grounded in what's right, and temperance to sustain your effectiveness over time. They're not separate. They're interconnected. 4, this week's practice. Pick one virtue you struggle with. Maybe it's courage. You have trouble speaking up. Maybe it's temperance. You overcommit and burn out. Maybe it's wisdom. You make decisions too quickly without testing your assumptions. Just pick one. And for the next 7 days, notice when situations call for that virtue. Notice when you rise to it. Notice when you don't. That awareness, that's where change begins. The Weekly Virtue Tracker Offer. To help you with this, we've created the Weekly Virtue Tracker. Apply the 4 virtues to your professional decisions. It's part of the Meditations Playbook. It includes a clear definition of each virtue in professional context, a weekly reflection template, one decision you faced filtered through all 4 virtues, a virtue assessment. Which virtue is your natural strength? Which one needs development? A daily practice. One small action per virtue you can practice this week. The moment you start filtering your decisions through this lens, something shifts. You start making choices you're actually proud of. You stop wasting mental energy on decisions that leave you feeling compromised or guilty. Your confidence increases, your sleep improves, your relationships deepen, and your professional impact becomes more sustainable. To get the tracker and the full Meditations Playbook, join the email list by clicking the link in the episode description. I'll also place the subscribe link in the pinned comment. Next Wednesday, we're exploring something most people avoid thinking about: mortality. We're diving into memento mori, the awareness of death, and how it creates the kind of clarity that cuts through all the noise about what actually matters in your career. Marcus thought about death every single day, not morbidly, strategically, and it made him focus on what he'd be proud of when he looked back. Until then, download the Virtue Tracker. Pick one decision from this week and run it through the 4 virtues. See what you notice. Thank you for being here. This is Book Takeaways for Professional Growth. Keep growing.